Nobody talks about how embarrassing it is when someone says you would be a cute couple to you and your crush, but they don't agree. Because one time, I was talking to this girl and my friend knew that I liked her, so to help me out, he became my wingman and said, you know what I just realized about you guys? You would look so good as a couple. When he said this, I waited to see how she would react before I did anything, but immediately, with no hesitation, she just starts laughing hysterically. No words, just laughing. I've literally told her actual jokes before and I couldn't get her to laugh, but this did. So I don't know what to do now, and I just start laughing trying to match her energy, but then she's like, wait, why are you laughing? And I was like, well, why are you laughing? And she goes, because we never date, obviously. So then I'm like, yeah, that's totally why I laugh too. But then she just responds with, oh. What do you mean, oh? Like, why is it fine when you do it but not me? Does she want me to like her or not? I don't know what I'm supposed to say. Never make eye contact with someone who has a lazy eye. Because the other day, I was at the airport and someone right behind me goes, excuse me. So I turn around and look at them, but right away, I noticed they had a lazy eye, so I couldn't tell if they were looking at me or not. But when I looked back at them, they said, do you like that jacket? But this is where I messed up because they had headphones in and I wasn't wearing a jacket at the time. So since one of his eyes wasn't looking at me, I just assumed he was on the phone and I turned back around. But when I did that, he went, that was rude. So I turned to look at him again, but he still looked like he wasn't talking to me because of his lazy eye. So finally I just go, eh? And he nods his head yes. So that was when I realized he was talking about the jacket I had on in my screensaver. So I apologized, but I didn't know what else to say because I couldn't just be like, oh yeah, sorry, I couldn't tell you were talking to me because of your lazy eye. I should have just pretended to be deaf. What would you do if an animal ruined your day at the zoo? Because that's what happened to me today. So I was at the hippo exhibit and they have this big pool area for them to swim in, which is like 50 feet away from all the people. So I was just chilling looking at the hippos roam around until one of them decided to go for a swim. But what I didn't realize about hippos is just how heavy they are because this hippo did not just stroll into the water. It sprinted full speed, then jumped in. And since the hippo is so big, when it hit the water, it made the biggest splash since Rihanna at the Super Bowl. So somehow, the water came all the way from the pool 50 feet over to me and everyone else standing by me. We all got drenched because none of us were expecting the water to come that far, so we didn't have time to react. This is literally how it went. Oh look, the hippo's about to jump in the water. Oh no. Nobody talks about how frustrating it is when you show someone a movie, but they don't pay attention. And then they'll ask questions during it, even though they wouldn't have to if they just watched it. Because the other day, my friend told me that he's never seen the movie Interstellar. And I was like, bro, that literally may be the best film of all time. You have to watch it. So I decided to show him it, and I'm super excited because it's such a good movie, I think he's gonna love it. But about 5 minutes into watching, I hear him laughing, and I'm like, this part of the movie ain't funny. So I look at him, and he's on his phone texting. So I'm like, bro, you're missing the movie. And he's like, oh yeah, my bad. Wait, who's this old lady talking right now? Maybe if you actually paid attention, you wouldn't have to ask these questions. So he puts his phone down and starts watching, but literally 1 minute later, he's back on it. Like if you don't want to watch a movie that I'm showing you, just tell me. I'd much rather you do that than say you want to watch it and then when I show it to you, you just completely ignore it. Nobody talks about how scary it is to see your teacher in public. Because I was at a restaurant with my family one time, but as the waitress was seating us, I see my teacher eating with her family. So I tried looking in the opposite direction because I didn't want her seeing me, but then we arrive at our table, which happened to be the one right next to them. So we sit down and I've just got my head turned like this, which makes my parents be like, Tyler, what are you doing? And I was like, oh, you know, I just got a sore neck. But then they're like, you look ridiculous, sit up straight. So I do, and despite trying my hardest to avoid eye contact, the teacher sees me. So she waves and goes, oh, hi, Tyler. Is this mom and dad? But I didn't want her talking to my parents because I knew she was gonna tell them how bad I behave in class. So I'm just like, yeah. And then she goes, this one's a big troublemaker, huh? And my parents look at me confused because they had no idea about my behavior in class. So to stop her from saying any more, I was just like, enjoy your dinner, Miss Garendo. You can always tell when someone grew up with divorced parents because during my high school graduation, the person I was sitting next to acted super nervous the whole time. So I was like, are you nervous about graduating too? But she was like, oh no, I don't care about the graduation part. I'm nervous for what's coming after that. So I was like, I see. You don't know what you're gonna do with your life after high school yet, huh? But then she says, what? No, I'm going to Duke, I'm fine. I meant that I'm nervous for what's gonna happen tonight. So I ask her to explain more and she tells me that her whole family is coming to watch her graduate, but they're all going to dinner together after. So then it clicked what was going on and I was like, oh, are your parents divorced? But not only did she say yes, she also said that this was gonna be the first time they were all together since they signed the papers. So she was super nervous because she had no idea how it was gonna go. I low-key almost asked for an invite to that dinner. I wanted to see how it was gonna go down. Nobody talks about how scary it is when you're at your friend's house and their parents start yelling at them. Cause I had a friend whose house I went to once and never again because the one time I went, it was so awkward. Like right when we walked inside his house, he tried introducing me to his mom, but she wouldn't even acknowledge my existence because right away, once she saw her son, she was like, Riley, why did I just get your report card in the mail and see that you're failing math? And he was like, Mom, we talked about this the other day. So they start yelling over each other, arguing, but Riley made a huge mistake because he got so mad that he cursed at her. And right when he did that, the mom completely stopped talking, went into another room, came back with a belt, and whooped him. All while I was right there watching. And then when it was over, he's wiping tears from his eyes and I'm just like, hey man, I got a call from my mom. I actually have to go, sorry. What are you even supposed to do in that situation? I don't know who felt more embarrassed in that moment, me or him. Nobody talks about how frustrating it is when you're trying to cancel plans, but your friend keeps finding out solutions. Because whenever I say yes to plans, it's probably because I was in a really good mood at the moment, or I just don't want to be rude and say no. So when the time comes to actually hang out, I usually don't want to do it. So I'll think of a bunch of different reasons why I can't make it, but my friend will always come up with a solution. My friends wanted to go see a movie that started at 10:30 p.m. So because I didn't want to go, I was like, sorry guys, I don't think I can make it. I have a dentist appointment tomorrow at 8 a.m. But then my friend was like, wait, is Dr. Benson your dentist? And I was like, yeah. And they were like, oh, don't worry, that's my mom's friend. I'll just tell her to text him to push her appointment back so you don't have to wake up as early. So I was like, oh my gosh, thank you so much. Just let me skip in peace. And this totally isn't a good thing to do, but I'm so bad at saying no when people ask me to hang out. I just don't want to be mean. Nobody talks about how frustrating it is when your friend owes you money, yet they keep buying stuff. Like me and my friend went out to eat one time, but he said he didn't get paid till next week. So he asked if I could pay for his meal, which came out to be $22. So when the day came where he got paid, I didn't even ask for my money back. I was just hoping he would give it to me on his own, but he didn't. So about 3 days later, we're hanging out and I ask him if he can pay me back. But he's like, sorry man, I don't have the money yet. Just give me a couple more days. So I'm like, no worries, dude, that's totally fine. Just let me know when you get the money. And I wasn't upset at all until I saw the story he posted the next day, because you know where he was at? The casino! But the funny thing was, in the picture he posted, you could see the machine he was using and it said he put $100 in there. Where'd you get that money from? He ain't borrowing from me anymore, I can tell you that. Does anyone else have a friend you can't talk to on speakerphone when you're around other people? Because I was in the car with my mom the other day and I get a call from my friend, but I was super scared to answer it because this guy says some weird things sometimes. And I was driving with my phone connected to the car so my mom could hear anything that my friend was about to say. So I'm thinking, okay, I have to decline this. So I go to do it, but then my mom's like, no, you can answer it, it's okay. Then I'm like, no, it's fine, I'll just call him back later. Then she's like, Tyler, it's rude to not answer your friend's calls. So she makes me answer it and literally all I do is say, hello? And my friend just starts moaning into the phone. It sounded like there was two whales mating inside my car. So I slammed the end call button immediately and my mom didn't say anything, but she gave me that look like she was thinking, is this how all your phone calls go? And this was the moment where I started putting my phone on Do Not Disturb. Girls who grew up with brothers are way different than girls who grew up with sisters. Because I have two friends that are girls. However, one of them only has brothers while the other just has sisters. And the difference between them is night and day because we would eat lunch together all the time, but eventually I noticed something strange while we ate, which was that the girl with just brothers would always eat her food like 5 times faster than the girl with just sisters. But not only did she eat faster, she also always looked worried that someone was gonna take the food from her. So one time I was like, damn girl, no one's gonna steal your food. But then she explained to me that it's a habit for her to eat like this because when she was younger, she had to eat her food super fast or else her brothers would just take it all. She rarely ever got to actually have a full meal because her brothers would just eat the majority of the food. Meanwhile, the girl with the sister ate like a damn turtle. You know she wasn't competing for food in her house. Having class with your friend is the worst thing ever because during school one day, a girl tripped walking to her desk and it was so bad that she dislocated her ankle. So she starts crying, but it's not like a cry. No, she's screaming. So the teacher and her friends are trying to console her while they're waiting for the nurse to get there. And the rest of the class is just kind of silent watching this happen, including me. Until I look over at my best friend because he had the tiniest smirk on his face. So the moment I saw that, I started laughing out loud. It wasn't on purpose. I just can't stop myself from laughing every time I see that face. But the girl and her friends heard me laugh, and there was no way for me to explain that I wasn't laughing at them. I was laughing at my homie. They should blame my friend though. It's not my fault he was looking at me with that John Pork smile. Nobody talks about how embarrassing it is when your teacher says to get into groups, but no one wants to work with you. Because one time, I was put in the math class at my school that's meant for the smartest students, so it's really hard. But I'm not smart with math. I don't know why I was put in it. So when the day came where we had to do a group project, it was awful because the teacher said to get into groups of 4. So I start looking around at everyone I know in the class. But every time I'd make eye contact with someone, they'd look away because no one wanted to work with me. And I don't blame them. I would have just held them back. But what made it traumatizing is since I couldn't find a group, I asked the teacher if I could work alone. But since there was no one left to work with, she was my partner. I mean, the good thing was I got an A on the project because of her, but still. Never double text someone you have a crush on because I used to do this all the time until one day. I was texting this girl I liked and she told me she was going to the mountains for the weekend. So while she was up there, I texted her asking how it was going, but she didn't respond. So about 10 hours later, I text again thinking that she probably just didn't have cell service and couldn't see the first text. Then I go to bed, but when I wake up in the morning, there's still no response. response. So I check her snap score to see if it's gone up since the last time she responded to me. It's not weird, everyone does it. But anyways, it did go up. So I knew she had service and I was just like, well, let's just try texting her one more time just in case she didn't see the first two. But you know what happens right when I send the text? My messages go from being blue to green. You know why? She blocked me. This is so embarrassing though, because I could just imagine her reaction after I sent the third text being like, damn, another text? This guy won't shut up. But I learned my lesson that day. Now, I don't talk to women at all. You can always tell when someone is a middle child because they do not get treated like everyone else. Because one time, I was at an amusement park with 5 other people and one of them was a middle child. So during this whole day, we were going on different rides, but it was super crowded there. So about 3 hours into being there, we realized we lost our middle child friend. So I was like, wait, guys, has anyone seen Cole? But no one had, so we figured he just went to the bathroom or something without telling us. So we called him to tell him where we were at, and he finally met back up with us. But we asked him what happened, and he told us he got separated from us right when we entered the park. So we were like, you got separated from us 3 hours ago and didn't try to call to find us? And he was like, nah, I'm used to people losing track of me. It happens all the time at home, so I just wandered off and went on some roller coasters by myself. I felt horrible for that, but honestly, I respect middle children a lot. They're way less needy than us younger siblings. If you get a call from a no-caller ID, always answer it. Because I got one the other day and I picked it up, but the person calling asked if my name was Raymond. So I said no and they hung up right away. But the next day, I get another call. But when I pick it up, I recognize that it's the same voice from yesterday. But this time when they ask if it's Raymond speaking, I say yes because I'm like, you know what? If they're gonna waste my time, I'm gonna waste theirs. So then they go, Raymond, would you be interested in selling your house? And I say, yeah, actually I would be. Then they ask what price I was thinking and I just throw out a random number and say 500,000. But then they're like, we can work with that. And then they said they'll contact me again soon with more details. So if your name is Raymond and you live in Southern California, just know that you might be getting a for sale sign put in your front yard in the next couple of weeks. My bad. Nobody talks about how scary it is when you're at your friend's house and they tell their mom you're hungry. Like, great, now your mom hates me. Because when I was younger, I would hang out at my friend's house after school a lot, but he had an appetite smaller than a celebrity on Ozempic. So I didn't want to ask him for food at his own house. I wanted him to offer it, but he was never hungry. So what I did is give him subtle hints that I was hungry, hoping that this would make him offer me food. Like we would see a Taco Bell commercial on the TV and I would be like, dang, Taco Bell sounds really good right now, doesn't it? But he would just be like, nah, not really. But one time when I did this, instead of responding to me, he was just like, hey, yo, mom, Tyler's hungry. Can you make him something? Why would you say it like that? Now your mama just thinks I'm a big back who wants to empty all her cabinets. I mean, I am, but still. Nobody talks about the difference between being boy pretty versus girl pretty. Because back in high school, pretty much all the girls in my grade had a crush on the same dude. But this confused me because there were other guys at the school that were in way better shape, more conventionally handsome, yet they got way less attention than this guy. So it wasn't until I asked the girls what was so attractive about him that I started to understand it. Because when they were describing what they liked about him, they didn't say any physical features, well, except for his height. But besides that, they mostly talked about his energy. So I was like, what do you mean by that? And this one girl helped me understand it a lot when she was like, do you know the main character in the Ratatouille movie? And I was like, yeah, the rat? But then she was like, no, the guy. That's the type of energy we're talking about. When she said this, I was like, oh, now I see why y'all like Pete Davidson so much. Looks like me pretending to be nonchalant and mysterious this whole time was all for nothing. Why do people make their phone flash when they get a notification? Because my friend almost got beat up for this the other day because we were at a restaurant and he was holding his phone, but then he got a text, so it started flashing like a fire alarm. And at first, no one said anything until he got another text about 30 seconds later, which made it flash again. But my friend was holding his phone like this when he got the notifications, so it was flashing to the table next to us. And the people sitting there was a family with 2 little kids. So the dad yelled at my friend and was like, hey, why are you taking pictures of my family? So my friend tried to explain that he wasn't taking pictures and it was just his ridiculous notification alert. But the dad didn't believe him at all, and I don't blame him, because who would choose to make their phone do that? But then my friend showed him that he was telling the truth by having me text him. But honestly, I was kind of hoping the dad would beat my friend up, just so he would finally change the damn ringtone. Nobody talks about how embarrassing it is when someone says you look like someone that is not good looking. Because I was at the mall the other day, and a person who watches my videos came up to me and was like, Tyler, I'm so glad I found you. So I respond with, oh yeah, why is that? And he goes, because every time I watch your videos, I always think of how you look so much like this one movie character. So I ask what character, and he says he'll show me, but before he does, he goes, you probably won't see it at first, but if you really look, there's a resemblance. So I'm thinking he's about to show me a picture of Brad Pitt or something, but then he turns the phone and it's the rat from Flushed Away. Immediately I was like, what are you talking about? I look nothing like him. But then he was like, here, compare it to a picture of yourself. So I do, and after a few seconds, I'm like, oh my gosh, I do look like him. You gotta be kidding me, man. Imagine meeting someone who watches your content in public and they just cook you. I can't catch a break. Nobody talks about the difference between how girls act when they have a crush versus guys. Like I knew this one girl that was obsessed with this dude at our school. And I used to think that when girls have a crush, they just tell their friends about it at a sleepover while giggling and kicking their feet in the air. But instead of doing all that, This girl literally just stalked his whole family tree. Like, she found his parents' social medias, where everyone in his family went to school, their birthdays. I mean, she probably knew all their blood types too. They should have made the TV show that's called You about this girl. But when a guy likes a girl, we just imagine fake scenarios in our head of us being together. Because last time I liked a girl, I had a dream that was literally just the plot of the Shrek movie, where I was Shrek and she was Fiona and I saved her. But sadly, in real life, I just stared at her awkwardly and hoped that she noticed me. Why does school make you so ugly? Like, every morning I wake up and get ready for about 30 minutes trying to look my absolute best for all the ladies. And when I leave the house, I feel like I look like Brad Pitt. But the moment I walk through those school gates, I turn into Quasimodo. And you might be like, oh, Tyler, it's all in your head. But no, I've literally taken pictures before to prove it. I took a pic of myself right before leaving for school, and then I took a pic when I arrived in class. And when you compare them, I looked more different than Michael Jackson when he switched colors. But how I know for sure that I'm not crazy is this doesn't just happen to me. Like, there are girls I went to school with, and whenever they would post on social media, I almost wouldn't recognize them because of how different they looked online compared to in person. But the most frustrating part about all this is right when school ends and I go back home, I look fine again. Who's doing this to us? Never buy shoes off Temu, because I was in class the other day and this kid walks in with a brand new pair of shoes. But they looked a little bit weird, so I knew right away that he got them off Temu because that man shops on that website like it's Black Friday every day. So anyways, he's wearing these shoes and we had a test that day, so the whole class was completely silent. Like, if you talk, the teacher's gonna fail you. So while everyone is taking the test, a song randomly starts playing out of what sounds like a really low quality speaker. And everyone starts looking around trying to find where it's coming from. But then I look at the Temu kids' shoes and they're flashing red, matching the sound of the beat. You know why? Because the song was coming from his shoes. The shoes had speakers in them. Apparently the shoe can play like 3 songs and he accidentally tapped the button that starts it. So he immediately pressed the button again, trying to turn the song off as fast as he could. But why would you wear your Temu shoes to school in the first place? A girl whose love language is physical touch is usually also a girl who hates being touched. Because I liked this girl one time, but she was never really interested in me no matter how hard I tried. So I asked her friends what I could do to get her to like me, and they were like, well, she always talks about how her love language is physical touch. So I was like, awesome, I'll use that to make her like me. But this was a dumb thing to think because we sat across from each other in class. So what I would do is play footsie and tap her feet with mine. It sounds weird, it wasn't. But anyways, I would do this hoping that she would tap my feet back in like a flirtatious way, but no. She would always quickly pull her feet away when I tapped them until eventually she got fed up with it and was like, would you stop touching my feet? So I went to her friends and was like, what the heck? I thought you guys said her love language was physical touch. But then they humbled me so hard by saying, yeah, but only if it's from people that she likes. Well, that would have been useful to know earlier. Now everyone in that class probably thinks I'm a weird foot toucher. Nobody talks about how sad it is when your favorite teacher yells at you. Because I only really liked one of my teachers throughout all of high school, and he was so cool that I would spend lunch with him every day. But one day during class, he spilled coffee on his shirt, and this put him in a really bad mood. So a couple minutes later, he's teaching the class, but the person next to me says something really funny, so I laugh. And normally, if I laughed while he was teaching, he would just ask what was so funny. And then when I told him, he would usually laugh too. But this time, he just screams, Tyler, if you want to keep interrupting this class, you can leave. And this almost made me cry because I thought we were homies. I was like, damn, you embarrassed me in front of all these ladies when I thought we were tight. But from this point on, it was never the same between us. I even had to stop eating lunch in his class because it felt so awkward now. It was literally like going through a breakup. You know how when you have a crush on someone, you stalk all their social medias to learn more about them? Yeah, well, I do not recommend doing that because one time I liked this girl and I was looking through her profiles online and I found a picture of her with her mom. So being the investigator I am, I clicked on the mother's profile to check it out. But when I did that, I found a picture her mom posted with a man. So I was like, oh, this must be my crush's father. But then I click on his profile and see that he has a different last name in her. So I'm like, that's odd. And after a little more research, I found out that her parents were divorced and this was the mom's new boyfriend. So fast forward a few days later, I'm talking to this girl and she's telling me about how she had a hard childhood. So I slipped up and was like, yeah, I totally get it. I mean, having divorced parents can't be easy. But then she goes, wait, how'd you know my parents were divorced? And I was like, you told me, duh. Anyways, look at that bird. So then we changed the subject, but she definitely knew I was doing some investigating on her. My friend got hit by a car the other day, and you may not think that's funny, but it is due to how he reacted. Because he was riding a bicycle going super fast, but when he rode across an intersection, a car that was turning right didn't see him because of his speed and accidentally hit him. But the part that makes it funny is he broke his wrist. So I asked how bad it hurt when it happened, and he was like, honestly, I was in pain at first, but then I looked up and saw how many people were looking at me, and I just got super embarrassed and left. So I was like, wait, you left after getting hit by a car? And he goes, yeah. So I was like, well, did you at least get the information of the person that hit you? And he goes, nah, I didn't want anyone to see me because of how cringe I probably looked getting hit. But the most funny part is that his bike didn't even work anymore. So he just picked it up and jogged away with it. He's the only person I know who will not react to getting hit by a car just so people think he's nonchalant. School bathrooms have to be the scariest place on earth because one time my mom bought me donuts for breakfast and I love donuts, so I ate 7 of them, then went directly to school. But about 2 hours into class, I felt rumblings in my stomach and it felt like Mike Tyson was in a fight with my intestines. So at that point, I knew I had no choice but to go into the school bathroom and go number 2. So I went into the stall, but then someone else walked into the bathroom with a speaker playing music. Then I heard another person come in, and another. And another. Eventually there was like 30 people inside the bathroom and they were all singing along to the music that was playing through the speaker. But they were going crazy in there. They were shaking the stall doors, throwing pencils. It felt like a war zone. I was terrified, but I had no idea what was going on. So when I got out of the stall, I asked someone what was happening. And apparently they were having a memorial for Harambe passing away because this was the day after that happened. Honestly, I wasn't even mad because I miss Harambe too, man. Have you ever gotten close with someone you never thought you'd talk to? Because back in school, I had 2 separate friends that hated each other. Because when I would hang out with one of them, the other one would get upset that I wasn't hanging out with them. So one day, I had the idea for us to all eat lunch together. Because they never even actually talked. The only reason they didn't like each other was because of me. So we all ate lunch together that day, and I think both of them started to realize that they had a lot more in common than they thought, and the only reason they disliked each other was for a dumb reason. So over time, we started to hang out as a group. And I was super happy about it at first, but unfortunately, they grew way closer than I ever expected because eventually, they started hanging out without me. It was basically like introducing your girlfriend to your homie and then she cheats on you with him. I hope y'all are happy together, man. Nobody talks about the difference between how your mom punishes you versus your dad. Because whenever I did something wrong as a child, my mom would start crying and be like, if you keep misbehaving, you're gonna end up like that kid Johnny that lives down the street that went to juvie. And I'd be like, Mom, Johnny hit an old lady with his bike. I just snuck some goldfish into my room. And then she would take my phone away. But with my dad, he wouldn't even discipline me at all. He would just be like, hey man, can you just listen to your mother? All right, cool, thanks. And that would be it. Unless I did something really bad, which in that case, getting punished by my dad was so much worse than getting punished by my mom. Because there was nothing more scary growing up than when my dad was angry. I would go to sleep thinking I was gonna wake up the next morning with a finger missing or something. But I am glad to say, I still have all 10 though. If you have to poop at your friend's house, make sure they have a good toilet. Because I just met my friend's parents for the first time at their house, so they don't know me at all. But his family is Latin, so I walk into their house and see that they're making this big dinner. But if there's one thing to know about Latin food, it's that it can be super spicy. But anyways, when all the food was ready, I started eating and they fed me like a king. They kept telling me to eat more and more, so I did because I didn't want them to think that I wasn't enjoying it. But about 20 minutes after we finished eating, my stomach started to rumble, and I realized I had to get to the bathroom ASAP. So I did, but like I said, I ate a lot. So after I was done on the toilet, I tried flushing it, but it got clogged. And I started to panic. Then I looked for a plunger, but I couldn't find one. So I flushed the toilet again. But that just made the water rise even higher until it almost spilt out the toilet. So eventually, I just had to tell the family what happened, and they all laughed. And then the father said, not everyone can take the heat. That man wasn't lying. Did anyone else have a friend growing up that your parents trusted, even though they shouldn't have? Like, my parents would let me go anywhere when I was younger, as long as my friend Jaden was coming. Because he was really good at talking to adults, so they thought he was the most responsible, respectful kid ever. Like when he came over, he would always shake their hands and be super mature, so my parents just figured that he was a good kid for their son to be around. But what they didn't know is how he acted when adults weren't around, because the moment we would leave, he would turn crazy. Like when Jaden's pet fish passed away, instead of burying it or flushing it down the toilet like a normal person, he filled the fish bowl with Coke and Mentos, which made the deceased fish shoot up into the air. It literally flew like 15 feet and then splattered onto the ground. I didn't know whether to be terrified or amazed by what I just saw, but this was like normal for him. He would do things like this all the time. But the moment that adults came around, he turned on that parents' riz. What would you do if someone ended your friendship over a joke? Because that's what happened to me today. So we were at dinner with a bunch of our other friends, and one of them got a new dog recently. So she was asking us for recommendations on what to name it, and everyone was giving names. And as a joke, I said, you should name it Diddy, so when it's misbehaving, you can say, you're a bad boy, Diddy. But no one heard me say this except for one person, and I knew he heard it because he was making eye contact with me. And I could tell by his reaction that he thought it was funny. But instead of telling me to say it again so everyone could hear it, he turns to the rest of the table and literally says, you should name it Diddy, so when it's misbehaving, you can say, you're a bad boy, Diddy. And the whole friend group just starts laughing hysterically. He literally repeated my joke word for word, but said it louder and then took credit for it. But this isn't the first time he's done this. When I saw him looking at me after I said that joke, I knew exactly what he was gonna do. You can't trust people like this. What would you do if a girl made her dog attack you? Because that's what happened to me today. So there's this girl in my apartment complex that I thought was super pretty, and I would always see her around. But I was too shy to ever talk to her until one day. She walked by my door with her dog at the exact same time I was leaving, so we were like 2 feet away from each other. And we made eye contact, so I had to say something. So I was like, oh, your dog is so cute. Can I pet it? And she let me, but as I'm petting it, I see that it's wearing a dog tag that has a phone number on it. So then I'm thinking, wait, this is probably her number. So I look at it for about 5 seconds, just pretending to pet the dog when in reality, I'm just trying to memorize the number. But she sneezes while I'm petting the dog, which frightens it. So it bit me. So then she apologizes like 100 times and I'm like, it's okay, don't worry. And then I leave. So I'm thinking, yes, I have her number now. But immediately after that, I was like, wait, what am I possibly going to do with it? Send her a text and say I got her number from her dog's collar? Yeah, that definitely won't make me sound like Jeffrey Dahmer. This is your warning to never share your location with your friend. Because my friend Mikey just started sharing his location with me, and I check it like multiple times a day because I'm nosy. But the other day when I looked at it, it said he was in Cuba. But we're American, and he doesn't have a passport. So I was like, how did he get there? So I called him to see what was going on, but no answer. So I wait until the next day and check the location again, but now it's turned off. And later that evening, I get a text from an unknown number that says, hey, it's Mikey. So I'm like, Mikey, what happened to your old phone? Last time I checked, you were in Cuba. But then he told me that while he was at dinner last night, someone stole his backpack that had all his stuff in it, including his phone. Keep in mind, he was in California when this happened. These thieves out here move quick, man. Imagine losing your phone and then checking the location of it one day later and it's halfway to Europe. That phone's traveled more than me. Why is it so hard to date in Gen Z? Like, I'm pretty sure everyone in this generation is gonna end up alone. Because there was this girl that would like my story every time I posted, but in real life, she would never talk to me. So eventually, one of her friends came up to me and was like, dude, why don't you talk to Sarah? So I was like, what are you talking about? And she said, you know Sarah likes you, right? She's been trying to flirt with you for a while now. And I was like, no, she never even talks to me. But then her friend was like, yeah, but she always likes your stories. So that's how people flirt now? I just figured she thought the memes I reposted were funny. Like, how am I supposed to know that's flirting? But I understand why no one wants to talk normally to the people they like in this generation, because if you do, odds are that what you say is just gonna end up in a screenshot that the whole school will see, and then they'll make fun of you for it. Am I speaking from experience? That's not important. Nobody talks about how scary it is to play music with your parents in the car. Because I never realized how dirty most of the songs I like are until I listened to them around my mom and dad. Like one time, I was in the car with them and I needed to charge my phone, so I plugged it into the aux, which made my music start playing. Then I was like, oh, let me choose a good song so my parents think I have a good music taste. So I put on the song With Them by Young Thug. But if you've ever heard this song before, you know that the moment it starts playing, it gets really inappropriate. So my mom was like, oh my gosh, Tyler, this is so vulgar. And my dad was like, heck yeah, this is awesome. But I was so embarrassed. I quickly changed it to gospel music just to try to make them forget about what happened. Like, I literally had no idea how dirty that song was until I listened to it with my parents in the car. I guess I just never actually pay attention to lyrics, but I learned my lesson. Never again. Have you ever had a dream about someone so then you started liking them in real life? Because one night, I go to sleep like normal, but I have a dream out of nowhere about this girl in my math class. And it fell straight out of a rom-com. So when the morning comes, I'm in love with this girl. And you may say, well, Tyler, surely you liked this girl before the dream too, right? No, I barely even knew she existed. She was a girl in my math class I talked to maybe once, which is more than I talk to most women, I guess. But anyways, the point is, I never thought about this girl. But all of a sudden, when I had that dream, I thought she was my soulmate. Like, I was planning our future together in my head, but this just shows how much I didn't know who she was. Cause I start looking into her more to learn more about her, and it turns out she had a boyfriend the whole time. So I don't know who's responsible for writing these dreams, but why do you have to play with my emotions like that, man? I mean, would I have even talked to her in real life? Probably not. But still. If you see your teacher in public, do not talk to them. Because one time, I was at the grocery store and out of the corner of my eye, I see my history teacher. But he was one of the teachers I actually liked, so I was gonna go up to him and say hi. Until he made eye contact with me, because once he did that, he looked away super quick and started walking the other direction. So I was like, dang, I guess he just doesn't like me like I thought. But then it started to make more sense what really happened the next day at school. Because I walk into his class and he has all the lights off, and right as the bell rings, he looks super tired and tells the whole class that we're gonna be watching a movie today instead of doing any actual work. So this is where I started to connect the dots of why he actually ran away from me. Because when I saw him at the store, he had a lot of alcoholic beverages in his shopping cart. So he definitely went home that day and drank a bunch, which is why he was tired. But he probably just didn't want me to know that. You could have just told me that though, Teach. I ain't mad at you. Gen Z is the most unserious generation ever. Because my friend used to have cancer, so he was completely bald. But instead of wearing hats or beanies to cover up his hair, he did the exact opposite. Because we had this class together that was super boring. So once he went bald, the next day, he brought these mini plungers to school. But when he pulled them out, we were like, what are these for? Like, did a Smurf clog up a toilet or something? But then he told us he bought the plungers so we could try throwing them at his head during class. So we would do a competition to see who could get the most to stick. And this was his idea. Because we were like, are you sure about this? But he was just smiling and was like, yeah, this is awesome. People in this generation don't even take it seriously when they get diagnosed with a chronic illness. I shouldn't even be surprised though, because this is the same guy who dressed up as Mr. Clean that same year during Halloween and put a bunch of baby oil on his head to make it more shiny. Gen Z has to be the dumbest generation ever. Because I just had my final exams for school, which determined whether I passed or failed my classes. And I thought I did really good on them until I got my results back yesterday. Because in one of my classes, our final exam was an essay, but since I'm chronically on my phone, instead of using correct punctuation and spelling, I just wrote it like how I would write a text. Like every time I typed the word you, I just spelt it by putting the letter U. And instead of saying because, I just said cuz and spelt it C-U-Z. I even wrote LOL in one of the sentences. I just completely forgot how to write normally. So when I got the paper back, my teacher circled all the incorrect grammar I used and literally said, this doesn't make any sense. This was almost as bad as the time I was in Spanish class and we had to create a short film speaking in Spanish, but I forgot and just did the whole thing in English. Maybe Gen Z's not dumb actually. Maybe it's just me. Nobody talks about how frustrating it is when you know someone is lying, but you can't say anything because of how you found out. Because the other day, I was hanging out with my friend, and he gets up to go to the bathroom, but he leaves his phone on the table, and at first, I wasn't even looking at it. But then I hear a ding sound go off, and out of habit, I glance at his phone, but I still wasn't gonna read anything until I see that it lit up because he got a text from someone with the contact name Baby Girl. But as far as I knew, my friend was single, so I was itching to know who Baby Girl was. And all of a sudden, my hand starts levitating over towards his phone without me having any control over it. That phone was calling me like the Green Goblin mask, so I pick it up, and the text says, love you, have fun. So he comes back from the bathroom, and to see whether he would lie or not, I go, is it just me, or are you tired of being single? And suddenly his voice gets really high as he goes, yeah, bro, I'm so tired of being single. So I just had to sit there without saying what I wanted to, and it wasn't until 3 weeks later that he finally told me he had a girlfriend. Gender reveals are going way too far. Because tell me why I just saw one where the couple was in a jacuzzi. So I was thinking the color of their bathing suit would change to blue or pink when they got out or something like that. But no, instead, they count down going 3, 2, 1. And then there's just an awkward silence for a second where no one moves until you slowly start to see the water in the jacuzzi turn pink. They were finding out the gender of their baby by peeing in a jacuzzi. And they were doing it in front of their whole family. There's no way one of them thought of that idea, pitched it to their partner, and they were like, wow, that's a great idea. I'm convinced someone forced them to do this. But somehow, that's not even as bad as another gender reveal I heard about on the news because they used colored fireworks and it started a forest fire. There goes that kid's college fund. Like, why can't y'all just stick to slicing open a cake or something? Gen Z in nursing homes is gonna be so scary because my friend's grandpa lives in one right now, and he told me that the last time he went to visit, there was 2 old people arguing, but the way they talked was so funny because it still sounded like they were in the 1950s. They were saying phrases like, you bet your bottom dollar. And then one lady trying to stop the argument was like, simmer down, boys. So this made me think about how ridiculous Gen Z people are gonna sound when we're in there. Because if we still talk like we do now, good luck to the nurses. Like an argument between us in the nursing home would be like, Bert, I know you cheated during bingo. That's cap, I did not. You're lucky I don't go to town on you right now. Wait, pause. And when we eat, it'll be like, man, this oatmeal hits different. We're gonna be the first generation to have brain rot in nursing homes. There's gonna be no nurses left that wanna work. Have you ever told your mom to say no to a sleepover because you didn't wanna go? Because I hated sleepovers as a child since I'd always be the first to fall asleep. And I'd wake up in the middle of the night with a tooth missing or something because everyone else would mess with me. But I have cool parents, so most of the time when one of my friends asked if I wanted to sleep over, my mom would say yes. So eventually, when I didn't wanna go, I would just text my mom and be like, Mom, I'm gonna call you in a couple minutes to ask if I can sleep over at my friend's house. Please say no. And my mom would rather have me sleeping at home than at a friend's anyway, so she had no problem doing it. But my friends would always get mad at me because this is how the phone call would go. Hey mom, can I sleep over at my friend's house? No. Okay, bye. So they'd be like, dude, you didn't even try to convince her at all. And I would just be like, what? Yeah, I did. Little did they know, I was just terrified to fall asleep around them. Never hire a Gen Z person to work for you. Because I was just at Chick-fil-A and the line was taking forever. But when it was my turn to order, I tell the guy what I want. But as I'm doing that, he keeps looking up directly behind me every 5 seconds. So I thought there was a ghost standing behind me or something. But then out of nowhere, he looks at the clock again, turns around, gets his stuff, and then leaves. Right in the middle of taking my order. So another worker sees this, rolls her eyes, and then finishes taking my order. But I asked her why that guy just left randomly, and she said he always leaves the second his shift ends. So the reason he was looking up behind me is because there was a clock on the wall, and the minute that clock struck 8 p.m., he was out of there. Honestly, I respect it because if you ain't getting paid to stay longer, you might as well leave. But bro, can you at least finish taking my order next time? Nobody talks about how Gen Z has a secret way of communicating. Because the other day, I texted my friend, but they got a new phone, so they didn't recognize my number. But when I told them who I was, they were like, I would have never guessed it was you based off the way you talk. So I asked what they meant by that, and they told me that I communicate like an old person, not someone in Gen Z. I didn't know what that meant, so I made him explain what exactly talking like a Gen Z person looks like. And he told me almost everyone in our generation never capitalizes the first letter of a sentence. But I do, so that's why he thought I was old. The worst part was he made fun of me for it, saying it looks dumb how I text. But like, dog, you're laughing at me because I use correct grammar? There's no way I'm the one getting cooked. So I asked him why everyone in our generation does this, and he was like, it just looks better. Since when do you care how good your text message looks? This ain't the Declaration of Independence. I don't care if it looks pretty.
রুটি ঠান্ডা গেলা?
রুটি ঠান্ডা?
ঠান্ডা মানে আব্বা বরফের লাহান ঠান্ডা। এটা রুটি।
শ্বশুর আব্বা আপনারে আপ্যায়ন করে নাই, খাতির যত্ন করে নাই।
না আব্বা আমি
বিলাই মারার রাত আজকা যদি তুই ঠিক মতো দামকে দিবার মানুষ বাইরে গেছিস গা, নালে বললাম সারা।
আর দোস্ত বাগও আছে, ওগো খানদান আর আমাগো খানদান এক না, অদ্ভুত কিছু নিয়ম কানুন পালন করতে যায়। তোমার বাড়ি
তুমি কইতেছোটা কি? আমগোর খানদানের পোলাপাইন যদি একবার ঘর জামাই হয়ে যায় গা, ওরা তোর খানদানে ফেরত যাবার পারে না।
আমি আব্বা আমারে বুঝামো।
কি বুঝাইবা তুমি?
হয় নাই কা, তুমি আমারে বুঝাইতে পারতা, আমারে মারলা। ওসব আমগো বংশে
গাছকে এইসব হইতেছে। আব্বা আমি কই যাবো আব্বা, আপনি আমার প্যারা ড্যাডি আব্বা।
তুই আমার দাঁড়াবি না, দূরে থাক দূরে থাক।
আমি খাটে ঘুমাইছিলাম, আমার লাথি মেরে খাটে তাহলে ভাইজান লেফটেন্যান্ট সারেত ঘুমাইছে।
হারামজাদা মিছে কথা কস্তুর।
বউয়ের সেবা সুন্দর করে না করতে পারলে জামাই পিটানোর রেওয়াজও আছে। আই তুমি কুস্তি পারো?
না
জি ভাইজান, ভাবি ফালতু খানদানে কইলাম আজকে তো আপনার বাস হয়ে
ফাইনাল ডিসিশন লয়ে লইছি, আজকে রাতে কিন্তু আপনার লগেই ঘুমাবো।
আমার লগে কেন বাজান? আপনি আমার লগে ঘুমাইবেন কেন?
জিন্দেগি তুই এইটা আর পোষাইতে পারবি না। বাজার তোর আমি সাজিয়ে দিচ্ছি, তুই জলদি।
ক্যাচে লাগাইছে।
মা তুই এক কাম কর, জামাই লইয়া শ্বশুর বাড়ি জাগা। ওন মা শ্বশুর
এই তো একেবারে বাঘের বাচ্চা।
ফুদি দে।
আচ্ছা বাঘের মতন যাবি।
ফাইনাল ডিসিশন লয়ে লইছি, আজকে রাতে কিন্তু আপনার লগেই ঘুমাবো।
আমার লগে কেন বাজান? আপনি আমার লগে ঘুমাইবেন কেন?
জিন্দেগি তুই এইটা আর পোষাইতে পারবি না। বাজার তোর আমি সাজিয়ে দিচ্ছি, তুই জলদি।
ক্যাচে লাগাইছে।
মা তুই এক কাম কর, জামাই লইয়া শ্বশুর বাড়ি জাগা। ওন মা শ্বশুর
এই তো একেবারে বাঘের বাচ্চা।
ফুদি দে।
আচ্ছা বাঘের মতন যাবি।
আমি কইতাছি ওখানে খুইলা আসো, নাহলে আমি টাইনা ছিড়া ফেলামু কইলাম।
আমার খানদানি পোশাক তুমি টাইনা ছিঁড়া ফেলাইবা?
আমার ফোন দাও।
নিবারা আমারে কইছো বন্ধুর লগে কথা কও, তুমি তো এঞ্জেল সোনিয়ার লগে কথা কও কি?
তারপর বউরে দিয়া হাত পাটি পাইছে, এর বাদে বউরে কইছে পানি লয়ে আহো, বউ পানি লয়ে আইছে, এই পানি দিচ্ছে ফালায়া।
আম্মা আব্বা রুটি সুরত দেখছেন? রুটি এরকম তেরে বাগা খেলা, হ্যাঁ রুটি সুন্দর।
আব্বা আমারে না হয় তুমি বুঝাইলা, তুমি তোমার খানদানের কি বুঝাইবা, আমার আত্মীয় স্বজনের কি বুঝাইবা?
আমি দুঃখিত।
বইয়ের হাতে মার খাওয়া চলে, তাই কিছু কই নাই কা।
আমাগোর খানদানে জামাই মারনের নিয়ম নাই কা।
তুই আমার এখান থেকে যাবি না মানে কি? অক্ষণ তুই বাইরে হবি।
আব্বা
কুইলজা কাপে না?
ওই বেটা ওই তোর কইলজা কাপে না মিছা কথা কইতে, হ্যাঁ? হারাম খোর জানি কোনখানকার।
মাগার মারামারিতে এক নম্বর।
আমি পারি। এখন মনটা চাইতেছে তোমার কান্দের উপর চড়ায় একটা আসার মারি।
ঠিক আছে ভাইজান, আমার মুখ চুপ বন্ধ থাকবো, আর কেউ আমি কিছু কমু না, মুখে কষ্ট।
এখন লাইনে আইছস।
ওগো কতদিন ধরে তোমার লগে আমি কথা কইতাছি মাগার
কি করো নাইকা হ্যাঁ আরো থেকে অনেক পর থেকে কি করতেছো ফোনের ভিতরে হান্দায় রয়েছো
আব্বাই তো ও মা গো মা আব্বাই তো দেখি হেভি পাঙ্খ
হুম নিশ্চয়ই কোনো ভেজাল আছে ওই দেখি কার লগে ফিল্ডিং মারতে
কি আবার সকাল সকাল ঘুম ভালো হইছে তোমার আব্বার লগে দেখা কইরা এলাম হাইটটা গেছিলাম এই ঘটনা
তুমি রাগ করো না।
রাগ তো তুমি করবা খারা খারা চায়া দাও
আমি তো ভাবছি ডাকাত পড়ছে নি।
এই শাহজাহানগর বাড়িতে ডাকাত আইব এমন কোন মায়ালাল পয়দা হইছে নি তোমার বিছানা আমি ভিজায়া দিছি গা
এটা তুমি কি করছো?
কি করছি ঘুমাইবা না
তোমার পূর্বপুরুষের মাথায় কি সমস্যা ছিল আব্বা?
ওর নাটকের পর কয় কি শুনছো ওই বেটা
আব্বা জান আপনার পোলার এখন জিগান তো রুটি গরম না ঠান্ডা?
বাপরে বাপ শুনছো নি একেবারে ডর দেয় তো বলে কুচি কুচি করে কাটতো হয়েছে আপনার ডর আপনার পকেটে থুয়া দেন
খানদানটা আমার কত উচ্চা দেখতে হইব না
দেখতেছি তো উঁচা ভি আর লম্বা ভি
কুচি কুচি করে না কাইটা ফেলাইছি আব্বা আমার তো মনে করে যখন ডর দেখাইতে দেখাইতে আমি দেখেন আপনি কি করি ঘরে আইলাম না এখন দেন না আসমানে ঠাড়াল্লাহান একেবারে কাঁপাইয়া দিমু
আচ্ছা আপনার